Hi, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. I'm not your life coach. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. This is episode 100 and something. I think we're quickly approaching our 200, so that's pretty exciting for me on this end. I trust that if you're listening now that you've found value in this podcast. We have some pretty amazing guest speakers coming up in the next week or two. They'll be on, so be on the lookout for that. You will find incredible value. I'm so stoked to have these guests on my podcast. And if you're listening, future guests, thank you for being willing to do that and share your knowledge and experience with this audience. Hey, life coaches. I was listening to the new audiobook by Grant Cardone. It's called 10X Mentor. It is absolutely phenomenal. If you have not had a chance to download it yet on Audible, please do so. Do yourself a favor. I forget what the price is for it, but do it. It is well worth it. Shoot, you could probably write it off as a business expense as part of your personal development or business development for training or education, and play it for your staff or make your staff listen to it. It is phenomenal. But in it, he kind of, he leads out talking about his story and how he got to where he is and who he used to be, Grant Cardone, that is. And he talks about this concept of him saying, I am not your life coach. And it was so interesting because the lines can so easily be blurred between what we would consider a life coach versus a business coach versus a fitness coach, versus any other mentor or type coach personality or influence in your life may be. And he was making a special point and purpose to clarify the two. So let's talk about this just briefly and shortly and dissect this a little bit, because it's easy, especially if you're in the consulting space or you're in the business space, to it's called requirements creep, is what we call it in the military. So I used to be in the acquisition fields, which has a lot to do with acquisitions of different things and sustainment. And you call it requirements creep. And there's a really great movie, kind of a tongue-in-cheek satirical movie called Pentagon Wars, that massively and perfectly demonstrated this. That they were developing a new tank. The Army needed a new tank, and they got together and they're like, okay, it needs to do this, it needs to go this speed, it needs to have this big a gun, and these amount of people have to fit in it, and it needs to be able to right. All these requirements come in, but as the movie progresses and people gain rank and Pentagon budgets get readjusted, all these different things add on, and then pretty soon it's like, okay, well, now it's got to have rocket launchers, and now it's got to have anti-RPG defenses, and all these things just kept adding on. And the tongue-in-cheek part about it is this one guy who was, maybe a young captain in his career, finally he's like a full bird colonel, 20 years later, before they even see a prototype of this new tank and stuff. So it's kind of that tongue-in-cheek. But going back to my original point, sorry for that little side note there, but if you haven't seen it, check it out. I want to say Kelsey Grammer is in it as well, as far as that Pentagon Wars. We have this ability or this lack of discipline to allow this requirement creep to come into, especially if you're a consultant. And this happens on almost any business. You can start adding on these extra things that you're like, oh, this would be a good supplement, and oh, this would be a great add-on or a great value to our clientele. But it gets away from kind of your core offering or your core thing that makes you who you are, makes your business what it is and what makes it successful. And as you do that too much or too far outside of your realm of influence and your realm of expertise and specialty, then you become non-effective at that point, right? It's the whole concept of I'm a, jack of all trades, but master of none. And in business, typically you want to be a master of something. You want to have some offering, whether it's an accounting business, you want to be really good at accounting. And even down then, are you a really good personal finance person? Are you a really good corporate accountant? What is your specialty, right? And certainly we see this in the law field and the medical field. All these things have these specialties. And you definitely don't want another real quick, I went and saw an ear, nose, and throat doctor not too long ago, and he was even talking about this, that his grandma would always call him up, and she's like, I'm having these, heart things, or I'm having these skin issues. And he's like, Grandma, like basically between, your upper brow and your throat. That's all I know. That's all I can do. And he was very good at that of, hey, you need to go see a dermatologist or whatever the case is, or go to the hospital. And they're very good at that in the medical field, as well as in most of those kind of professions that we think of as large corporations, whether accounting and lawyers, things of that nature, are very good at, staying honed in on what their specialty is. So let's talk about this thing of a life coach. First of all, it's kind of helpful to kind of define what are typical things that a life coach would have influence on or have the ability to help somebody else with, whether it be in a mentorship role or a paid role, whatever that is. And certainly relationships fall into that, right? Relationships are a massive part of life. That's kind of what defines life and what makes the world go round is the relationships. To include love, to include breakups, to include sex life, all those things come into that relationship realm. And it's like one of the largest money generating aspects of our society that exist is the whole relationship space. And life coaches can certainly help you with that. Divorce, absolutely. Young married people that are going through their initial kind of growing pains of learning to be married and all those types of things. Certainly sobriety, life coaches can help. Arguably, the organization of, AA is a life coach type of an organization that specializes in sobriety. And you could easily, if that's not working for you or you need somebody, you have your sponsor, they become kind of your life coach in that sense. So that's another big one is alcoholism, drug abuse, something of that nature. And then certainly a life coach focuses on like, what's my purpose in the world? They help you find your purpose. They help you find what really strives you to greatness, what really pushes you to greatness, what really makes you who you are, and figure out what you have to offer to the world to really validate your existence, right? If you're looking for that. And life coaches can do that. And on the flip side, and kind of coinciding with that, is certainly a spiritual journey. Life coaches can help with that if you're, in that realm of questioning that. And then finally, we'll touch on, and there are more than this list that I'm doing, but certainly mental health. Life coaches, if you're not at the point of you're needing, no kidding, psychiatric help as far as whether it be, drug supplementation or something of that nature, life coaches can help you deal with, heightened emotions and how to handle stress and all those types of things that have to do with mental health. And it's important to realize that if those are not your spaces, if that is not what you focus on, don't focus on it. Don't even, basically kind of don't allow it. And don't allow, if you've got a customer or a client that has hired you to do something non-related to that, don't allow it to creep, because it is so easy, especially once you've developed a relationship and a trust factor with a client in this sense. In any business, this could be for anything. Don't allow that requirement creep as they're running into these various issues to off-rail you. But here at Kale Houser Leadership, same thing. We are not your life coach. I cannot help you get sober. I can offer my support. I can offer my sympathy and my empathy, but I have no idea how to help somebody get or maintain their sobriety. I can offer relationship advice in the form of what has worked and not worked for Liz and I, but beyond that, I haven't studied, different cultures and relationship and, what your background is. I only have my very unique experience to go on, and I would not at all apply that to most cases because we don't kind of fit into that mold. And certainly not with mental health. I kind of have the military mindset of mental health of you just kind of suck it up and go, right? And I'm steadily realizing in my own journey that that's not necessarily the most healthy. I think we kind of basically understand that, and those are some of the hard lessons that I'm learning over the years. But here's what we can help you with. Here's what Kale Houser Leadership can help you with. Your leadership. Tactics, techniques, and procedures, things that make you an effective leader, things that make you a confident leader, because that's what we want. That's one of our 3 core issues is how do we make small business owners, new entrepreneurs, people that are growing their business confident in what they're doing, confident to make decisions, confident to have the vision, confident to know what they're looking for, to put priorities in place, all those things, and how do we make them confident? That's what we can do. Now, certainly there is some intermingling of, yes, relationships happen in business. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships, but just interpersonal relationships. You have to be able to relate to other people, especially if you've got staff and employees, to become effective teams, right? That's the core of it. A team is just a group of people that are relating to each other in some form or fashion and are ideally going towards a common purpose. Communication, we can help you with that. That's what Kale Houser Leadership does, is helps solidify those forms of communication and methods of communication and lines of communication in order to be the most effective. So it leaves less and less room for ambiguity in the form of communication. And certainly feedback. We are here to help you figure out the unknowns. We're here to help you see some of the splits in the road ahead, some of the curves, some of the dead man curves, some of the drop-offs and the hills that you may not, just out of lack of experience or lack of understanding, be able to see. That's what we do. We provide that feedback for you as a sounding board. And certainly business best practices. Like, is it good to open 6 more locations next month? Yeah, probably not. Very, very unique cases that would be. But is it good to start thinking about, where do I want to start doing, and what is my growth plan, and what is reasonable, and what is, a risk versus reward type of a play in that space? Is there a market share? Will that industry be supported in those other locations like it is in your current successful one? Like all those things, right? Business best practices. Apologize for this. I'm getting a little tongue-tied because I think I'm kind of excited, and this is a super interesting topic to me. But also marketing and sales. Kale Houser Leadership can absolutely help you if you're trying to figure out your marketing, how the best market, the methodology, who to hire, all those things, and what's the most effective way to market in your industry. And then certainly the sales aspect of it. How do you do follow-up? How do you do closes? How do you do introductions? How do you just sell your stuff in general, right? If you're beyond just somebody walking in off the corner, if you need to actually go out and, pitch your things to clients. And certainly connecting with your team. So this is the second pillar of the overarching what we do at Kale Houser Leadership, is we create connected teams. And that includes relationships, that includes communication, that includes feedback, all those things to come into what makes a completely connected team that is interested in growth and advancing your business. And ultimately coming down to creating this inspired staff that is there for more than just a job. You've provided them, opportunity and all these things that come together to create this amazing business that they actually want to work for, that they actually kind of find purpose in and they find value in continuing to work there versus just, yep, it provides me a paycheck so I can pay my rent and my car payment and all those types of things. But it ultimately comes down to Kale Houser Leadership, where our purpose is to build confidence in you as a leader. In the business sense. But the benefit of this is this will overspill into other areas of your life. As you start to figure out how to communicate with these strangers that are your employees or are part of your department, you figure out how to talk to your brother. You figure out how to talk to your kids. You figure out how to talk to maybe an estranged family member or a neighbor that you're having a hard time dealing with because you've got some neighborhood dispute going on, whatever that is. These are all things that kind of overspill into that kind of life category, as it were. So I want you to, if you're the one listening to this as the leader, as the one that's going out and being the consultant, or you're the leader in your business, think about ways that maybe you are allowing that requirement creep. You're allowing that version of being a life coach to other people that's outside of your realm of expertise, that's outside of your realm of comfort to other people, because really you're just doing them a disservice. Right? They may be attracted to you because of a product or a service that you provide that you are the perceived expert in, or the authority of that product or service. And as you start tacking other things on, unless you do it very purposely and carefully, it becomes diluted. And it could become diluted to the point where everything, right? So just like the rising tide raises all ships, a lowering tide kind of lowers all ships, right? That's kind of how that works. And as you do that and your tide starts to go out in the form of, not being able to focus and put the attention on things as you need to or as you used to, you become a disservice to your clients, and eventually that will start showing. But overall, I'm not your life coach. Remember that. And if you need to say that to somebody, even if you need to say that to an employee, it's like, man, George, I completely appreciate that you're having this issue. I completely appreciate that you and your spouse are fighting, or that you've got issues with your teenage daughter or son. and I'm happy to listen to them, but I'm not equipped to like legitimately help you other than just being a listening and sympathetic ear, but I do know somebody over here, or I can refer you to somebody over here that can, I can offer you that help to get you the help you need, kind of thing. So be cautious of that, because, and honestly, this can also come out of just a sense of wanting to serve other people, but then feeling guilty for not serving them, but you really are serving them by letting them know that they would get better service from somebody else. So that all makes sense. I hope that wasn't too convoluted of my thought process and how that works, but really it comes down to barriers and just being good at what you're being good. And here at Kale Houser Leadership, we know we are good at helping you as the business owner be a really good business owner and a really good business leader in your community, in your office, with your staff, whatever that looks like for you. So make sure you visit kalehouser.com or kalehouserleadership.com. Either of those. Follow me. Instagram is Kale Houser. Twitter, Kale Houser, at Kale Houser, all those things. I'm pretty simple to find. I'd love to engage with you. Leave a comment below. How have you found maybe an instance where you maybe stepped out of your lane just a little bit in trying to help people and maybe it didn't work out as you would hope? That would be an interesting discussion to hear some real life examples from your perspective. Likes, comments, subscribe. That would be fantastic. Hey, I look forward to talking to you soon. Again, be on the lookout for upcoming guests. They're going to be pretty legit and phenomenal. So stay tuned for that. All right, everybody, no matter where you're at in the world, have a fantastic afternoon. Bye.